Today, we know that the job market is changing rapidly and sometimes a little bit scary when we look at robots and other devices taking the jobs of people. What do you do? Well, we know lifelong learning is important, but how do you do it? I've asked two incredible people to join me to help you today. Ruth Veloria, she's the Executive Dean of the School of Business for University of Phoenix, and Chris Brogan, a professional speaker, New York Times bestselling author, and a person who helps owners to improve their business and their sales. So get your note-taking device of choice ready to go, or pen and paper if you want that too, and get ready to learn how to boost your career, your sales, and your job opportunities. Education has always been important to achieve the status you want in life. Today, even more so, and there's a lot of other ramifications going on. To find out about how this can affect you, I've invited some people to join us that know about this and have a lot of good ideas. First of all, we have a person joining us from the Phoenix area. We have Ruth Veloria. She is the Executive Dean of the University of Phoenix School of Business, and she joins us from their offices out in, well, coincidentally, Phoenix. Ruth, thanks for being with us today.
Hi, hello, Terry.
And we also have a person that I have known for a while as a person who helps owners to get ahead. His name is Chris Brogan. He is the CEO of Owner Media Group, and he's a professional speaker and author of New York Times bestsellers, 9 books. Matter of fact, he's got another one coming out, which will mean now 2 hands will have their anticipation. Chris Brogan. Chris, thanks for joining us today.
Terry, so glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
And we're going to be talking about what's going on with technology, what's going on with training and things like that. Ruth, I want to start with you, and because you're dealing with a lot of people working with the University of Phoenix, which helps so many people. Just personally, I know many people that have been able to achieve their goals in career and be able to achieve certain skills. What do you see happening today, and why is it important for ongoing education in today's world, Ruth?
Well, listen, the pace of business change is just accelerating every day, and the types of skills that are needed, the innovation that's needed, the technologies that people have to be familiar with to help businesses stay on track is just evolving at such a rapid pace. I mean, gone are the days when you'd expect to do a 4-year degree once and then think you're done learning. It's, the world is evolving. It's got to keep up the skills to keep up with the competitive nature. And that's why folks really need to be working out how they're going to invest in themselves.
Yeah, it's no longer a matter of, well, I took this in college, so I'm okay. I remember Earl Nightingale, the Dean of Personal Development, people would say, oh yeah, I had history once, I had political science once, I had English once, as if it were an inoculation. But it's ongoing now when you're in a career. But it also applies to entrepreneurs and people who, well, let's say take ownership of what they do. Chris Brogan, you help people like that. And in all due full disclosure, I am a customer of yours. You and I are friends and professional colleagues, but I also took your course and found it to be very, very helpful and made money because of it. Chris, what role does ongoing education play for today's entrepreneur and those who really take ownership of their job and their career?
A lot of what we found in working with people was that they were running out of time in a lot of smaller businesses where they were trading hours for dollars. And so they were coaches, professionals, medical types who were finding that they didn't have as much one-on-one time to make their money the way they would have to in just one-to-one hour-based work. And that there's a lot more opportunity to do non-billable hour type projects. And so what we wanted to do as our first project was teach people how to build an online course. And we had this idea that people could sell their brains a little bit. And so in a lot of businesses, what that affords is there's a lot of information in most any business that doesn't have to be commuted one-to-one and use up consulting time, whereas someone could just take a course off a shelf, get their way through the process the way they need to know it, and then spend the money on customizing and fine-tuning and the real details. And then from there, we built other courses. A lot of people went through my online course. They realized they didn't actually have any way to sell it to anyone. They didn't have a list the way online marketers do. And so we went, oh, And so we built a course called Earn More Customers. So not anything like Ruth's system where, we must have this curricula. This is how we've done it. This is how traditional schools have done it. This is how Phoenix has stood out. Mine was like, hooray, let's make courses. And that's how it worked.
Yeah, and I think there's a place for both of those in today's world that we see that. Matter of fact, one of the things I want to do, go back to, and Ruth, I'll look at you for this one. Look at certain industries and where people need to, I think the term is upskill, as they learn more skills, get that. What particular industries have you seen as you look at the University of Phoenix and other areas where they need to do that upskilling?
Well, we certainly work a lot with financial services businesses, and there the impact of newer technologies in those is huge. Obviously, manufacturing is a key one. All of the robotics that are impacting the manufacturing industry nowadays. You have to be more of a computer scientist than a mechanic nowadays to work in any kind of manufacturing. So these it really is widespread. Look at retail. Retail, we're going away from stores, they're turning into service centers, and they need more people in the IT department to run an e-commerce engine for them, which adds more jobs in supply chain and logistic, which once again are ruled by robots. So it's just really, Terry, in many, many industries across the board, just the impact of internet, of automation, of robotics, artificial intelligence, which will impact the customer service industry. It is almost like there's no stone left unturned when it comes to picking an industry where people are going to have to get upskilled.
Yeah, I think so. We're seeing that a lot. Matter of fact, I appreciate you mentioned robotics because we see what is happening with robots and with self-driving cars. Like, for instance, the mathematics of it and the business economics of it. If it takes 4 days for a driver to get the car, or the truck, I should say, from Los Angeles, say, to New York to go across the country, that's 4 days because they're allowed only 10 hours for driving. And I think that's as it should be for safety. But we can have a robot do it in 36 hours. Wait a minute, 4 days versus 36, the economics of it say, might not be good. Whereas if we were having this interview, say, 10, 20 years ago, we might say, a good job would be to learn to be a truck driver. And there's some wonderful professional truck drivers out there today. But so today, it looks like we need to learn some of these new skills. So what I want to do is I want to ask both of you a question. Matter of fact, as I'm sitting here in my offices in Orlando, I'm looking out the window right now. I can see Harry Potter's world over there at Universal Studio. I can see it right now. It's there. So what I'm going to do, hold on just a second. Okay, I've got my Harry Potter wand here, and I want to tell you, and it's invisible. So I've got this here, and I'm going to get it through the wonders of technology. I can send that to each of you. So Ruth, you ready? Here we go. Okay, you got it there. And Chris, I'm sending you one as well. There you go. I got that. Okay, now that you've got that, I want you to rub that Harry Potter wand and tell me, what kind of skills do you see that are most important for the future? Because if we had said be a truck driver before, that'd be correct now, but then, but not now. Ruth, first, what are you seeing are skills that we need to get, people need to acquire in today's environment?
So I think there's a real dumbbell effect here, like a barbell effect, I should say. There is a high demand for the big data, the data analytics, data manipulation, computer programming skills on the one side, which we think of as very technical skills. They're very hard skills. But then just as much of a demand now, in fact, more so, on critical thinking, teamwork, partnership, and collaboration skills. So some of the more soft skills, communication, storytelling. So you need people who can crunch the data, but you also need to be able to tell the story of what it's saying. So we're seeing a doubling down both on technical but also on soft skills, and trying to find those people that can marry both of those together. That is really the ideal employee of the future.
Yeah, that makes sense to have those skills like that. And Chris, you're dealing with entrepreneurs, people that have to kind of adjust, adapt all the time and take ownership what they do. What skills do you see most important to acquire?
Well, one of the traits that a lot of my people come to me with are that they're either getting ready to leave one of their careers or they have been pushed out of one of their careers and they are suddenly in a spot where they have to upskill. And so as Ruth pointed out, the soft skills, storytelling, communications, media making, in a world where we must communicate a lot more textually and also visually with video, it is not everyone's baseline skill to know how to hold a camera in front of their face and give some small, useful piece of video content. And that becomes important. One of my friends, Dave Courvoisier, is the anchorman of News Channel 8 in Las Vegas, and he's had to teach every single employee in their company how to be their own camera person, how to do their own news, because gone are like 20 people crews to go out and, capture the car crash on 8th Avenue. The other thing is, when you mentioned truck drivers, the sad truth of smart cars is a good majority of those truck drivers are going to be out of work shortly. And that means that, just like stable hands were when we went out of carriages, right? So the retraining demand is intense. And I think that there's going to be sort of like a low-hanging fruit level where a lot of people are going to get into programs that aren't going to get them into any particular doors. It's just the sort of the baseline. But then I see that where we go from there is, as Ruth said, how do you take big data and parse it into something useful that is worked out for serving one particular human, serving the very specifics of a neighborhood, for instance, or local business. So I see a lot of tuning that goes on once we get the gross stuff out of the way.
Yeah, I think you make some good points there. Although I think back to my own upbringing. I was born and raised in the Midwest. I worked my way through undergrad school, working in factories and the union jobs, et cetera, doing whatever I could to make it happen. And I could relate to the people there. Ruth, I want to ask you, you deal with a lot of people, helping them in a practical way that University of Phoenix does. I mean, not just pat on the head, yeah, be nice, but what would you say to that person that's watching this, who might have been working in a traditional type of work? Maybe it's in the Detroit area in Michigan, or they might be somewhere else. They've been doing it for X number of years, and now all of a sudden they're scared. They might be 40, 45, 50, 55 or older, and it looked like, ooh, they might not have a job. What would you say to that person that's watching this right now?
I would say, take control of your own career. Nobody's going to do that for you. And think about those areas where you most would like to grow and develop, and find a piece of bite-sized education. You don't necessarily have to sign up for another full 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree. It could be a boot camp in some technology skills that you could take now to really retool yourself for working in the new, car industry in Detroit. Or it could be something around digital marketing. Right? Maybe I don't want to be on the engineering side and coding side, but marketing is different now than it was when I did my MBA. So find those bite-sized groups of courses. They may only be 12 weeks long, but they can give you something that is going to enhance your skill set, and focus on doing it in a place where it's very applied. Are the faculty members theoreticians, or are they work every day and then helping teach you at night? Because what you want to do is make a difference when you hit the ground floor on your new job with real skills that work in the daily practical setting. So focus on finding those places that are really going to give you the skills that are needed day in and day out. And again, there's lots of options for things that are not 2-year or even 4-year commitments.
Yeah, I think that's important. Now, there's a place for the 2-year, the 4-year commitment. I know for me, I went through the formal program, and that was good for me. Right now, I'd have to step back and go, I don't know right now, but I'm not 22 again. Tried to be, but not there yet. We've got just a few minutes left. And Chris, I want to ask you a very important question. You and I deal in the realm of technology. We work with that, et cetera. Often learning how to learn is critical, because there's they got all kinds of new goofy names for products. You got to learn Twitter. Now you got to learn LinkedIn. Now you got to learn Facebook. And next year it'll be the oodly boodly, and then there'll be the wiggy wooger, or whatever they're going to call it. How do we learn how to learn so that we'll be able to adapt in the future? How have you seen entrepreneurs doing that, Chris?
Well, that's a really important part of the facet of what Ruth was talking about, for instance, because so I live in the Boston area. There are 28 different colleges here. And when I was getting my opportunity to go through school, I went to 7 different colleges and never finished a formal degree. And the reason was exactly what Ruth said. If you don't have practical people doing practical things, you end up with people talking about someday in the future kind of thing. Well, I was working in the future. I already had a real live day job in wireless telecommunications where we were building stuff that didn't exist before. And I would have to go to these classrooms and learn 8-year-ago's data and technology. And I said, there's no point. Like, they're taking my money and they're going to give me a rectangle that is technically going to check a box that is not that important to me, it turns out. I have some regrets. There's a few degrees I think would have been perfect no matter what age they came from, law, sociology, for instance. But skills, which is where University of Phoenix did something no one else had done, before is they said, we're going to put really on the ground people in these class roles. We're going to make sure that the people who are taking these classes matter. So Terry, my take on this all is that, in learning how to learn and learning how to learn fast and all that, it's to never really lock into any one perspective. It's to never think that this is the ship that's going to take me from here to there. Pirate ships go after the gold. They don't care what ship they're in. If the ship sinks, they just get in a different one, right? The gold is the goal, right? So with learning, you always have to have that sort of concrete understanding of, I need to get here. And that's all you have to keep solid, because the courses might change, the technology might change, your locale changes, you shift around from New Zealand and Australia and all parts of the world to Korea and Hong Kong or whatever. As it changes, we need to be able to discard info fast and just keep picking up what's going to work and where to source that information. And I think that's where we go from there.
I like it. Very pragmatic, going for it and making it happen. Well, before we leave, I want to give each of you a chance to say any final words, and also let us know how people can get in touch with you or find out more information about what you're working with and how you can help them. Ruth, we'll turn it to you first. Any final words, and how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, I just think there's a widespread acknowledgement in the US right now that we're entering an era really of lifelong learning. People have to be committed to, whether it's something new every day that you learn from Twitter feed or from your LinkedIn feed, but you got to take the time to keep your eyes open, look for those opportunities to teach yourself something new, because the world is moving fast around you. We have lots of great ways to do that at the University of Phoenix, and you can find us at www.phoenix.edu.
Sounds good. Ruth, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate it. And Chris, your thoughts, any closing thoughts here, and how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. No matter what I've ever done in what form or business that I've done, it's always been the same goal. How do we use technology to drive better human interaction? I just want every business in the world to treat my mom better and treat your mom better too. And so in that process, in learning all this lifelong learning that Ruth points out, it's really important that we keep aiming towards our goals and not just learning just for the sake of. And that's really important that you kind of have an angle as where you're headed. To find me, you could either go to owner.media and check out that sort of thing, or just chrisbrogan.com. Either way you find me.
Wonderful. Chris, thank you very much for being with us. And thank you, dear viewer, dear listener, for being with us today, because this is a really important subject. I'm very passionate about it myself. You've seen my material. You know I talk about it a lot. Find what's right for you and be willing to learn. Pay the price. Put in the time, the money, and the energy to do that. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Benjamin Franklin, who had so many good things to say. I love when he said, "Pour the coins of your purse into your mind, and your mind will overflow your purse with coins." Mm-hmm. Think about that. Be willing to put in the time, the money, and the energy to learn and to improve your skills. And I think you'll be very successful in the future for that. I'm Terry Brock with terrybrock.com for Business Journals. Thank you for joining us today.